I am proud to be here today, along with Tina Porter, to show my support for Senators Justus, Senators Callahan, and Senators Koster's efforts to amend and change the current parental kidnapping law here in Missouri. This new legislation that's being proposed will not only deter and prevent parental kidnapping crimes from occurring in the future, it will give prosecutors across the state the tools we need to adequately prosecute these crimes and punish those who commit this crime. With that, I'll turn things over to Ms. Porter.
Hi guys. I just want to thank these four behind me for acting as quick as they did and knowing that we needed to have changes that need to be made, and I really appreciate it.
Good morning. What happens when one parent steals a child from another parent? Not just for a day or a week, but for an extended period of time. That act is every bit as much a kidnapping as if a stranger entered your home and took your youngster. The proposed changes that we are putting forth in Missouri law next week address the loophole that the Daniel Porter prosecution raised and that was really heretofore unrecognized in Missouri law. When both parents have full custody over a child and one parent steals or kidnaps that child, Missouri law does not recognize that as the type of kidnapping that you and I recognize as appropriate under the criminal justice system. In fact, the prosecution of the Daniel Porter case was struck down and reversed by the Court of Appeals because the fact that each parent had full custody over these two children forbid a full prosecution under Missouri's kidnapping statute and knocked the prosecution down to something called parental kidnapping. Parental kidnapping under Missouri law is considered a D felony because both parents have full custody over the child. A D felony is only prosecutable up to a cap of 4 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections. What this law recognizes is that when a parent steals a child from another parent for an extended period of time, that a higher level of prosecution, a higher level of sentence is the correct punishment for such a crime. Under the proposed statute, if a kidnapping in such a circumstances occurs up to 60 days, the new law will bring the punishment from a D felony up to a C felony or up to 7 years incarceration. And if the offending parent steals a child for more than 120 days, then it is considered every bit as severe a kidnapping as a stranger kidnapping is today under Missouri law. A B felony prosecutable by, punishable by 5 to 15 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections. I want to thank Prosecutor Jim Kanatzar for working with our office and trying to format a piece of legislation that makes sense to fill this loophole in the Missouri law. I want to thank Senators Justus and Callahan for the support that they have offered in carrying this legislation through the General Assembly as we begin our week next week. And I would be happy to turn it over to either one of my colleagues or to take questions from the media.
When do you think this is going to actually be debated out on the floor?
I think that we will see a hearing probably in the Judiciary Committee within a matter of a month, and I would think that it would be out on the Senate floor by mid-March.
Case raised this loophole, but maybe this is for the prosecutor. How often do you see these types of situations? How often would we be dealing with this type of prosecution?
Well, like any crime, I hope not often, but we want to be prepared for the circumstances that arose in the Porter case, unfortunately, and to be able to address those appropriately and see that there's a severe punishment for people that commit those types of crimes. I can't really give you a prediction as to how often we may have to utilize it. I hope we don't have to utilize it. But in the event we do, we'll be prepared now with this legislation.
How common are parental kidnapping cases?
Unfortunately, they're very common. It's a problem across Jackson County. It's a problem across the state. And I think this, like I said earlier, I think this new legislation with this extended punishment, you're going to see a real deterrence in these type of crimes in the future, hopefully.
Do you worry you might sort of, I mean, the circumstances of the Porter case were sort of extreme. Do you worry you might, that this may not work well for all cases, that maybe this might be too harsh in some circumstances?
I don't see that as a problem because the punishments are graduated. And I commend the senators behind me for drafting legislation that way. They really took into account what the prosecutors want, what law enforcement want in these type of statutes. It allows for some discretion in areas that you're referring to.
Were you aware of this loophole before? And when you did become aware of it, what kind of reaction was there in this office?
Well, we obviously felt like we were on strong legal ground when we pursued the case under both the parental kidnapping charge and the traditional kidnapping charge. If I had to do it all over again without that legislation or without that new case in hand, I would have pursued the case the same way. I was caught off guard with it. I was surprised. I thought we were on strong legal footing. Unfortunately, the Court of Appeals disagreed with us. That happens from time to time, but we're taking steps to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And can I say something? I'm sorry, guys.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm very happy with the way that they prosecuted the first case. They did a great job, and for them to find this and act on it as quick as they did is amazing.
Any others?
Tina, have you spoken to other parents who have experienced this type of situation that this loophole would help?
You know, I'm still not talking to people I still find it hard to talk to families that's gone through what I'm going through. I don't know why, but to answer your question, no. Not yet, but I will be.
Tina, do you expect to go to Jeff City in this process and perhaps maybe testify in favor of this bill?
Do you think so? Yes, I will be. Of course.
Jim, do you think that this will in fact be a deterrent? Because let's face it, if they run off with the kids, they probably don't think they're going to be caught.
Well, in all criminal situations, there's always going to be some people that aren't deterred, but I do believe that, in my experience as a prosecutor, and Senator Koster was prosecutor before he was senator, he can speak to this as well. Whenever you increase the punishment on a certain crime, you're going to have a level of deterrence. We'll never be able to concretely tell you who we deterred from committing these crimes because they don't wind up in the system. But statistics will show you that if you increase punishment, it will have an effect on the level and the amount of crimes that are committed in that particular area.
For any of the lawmakers, do you envision any difficulties getting this passed?
No, I think that once it's explained that there is a loophole such as this in state statute, that at a bipartisan level, legislators will come together and fix the problem. And going back to something that Jim said a minute ago, I think that you probably see parental kidnappings at a ratio of 10 or 20 to 1, in my personal experience as a prosecutor, over standard kidnapping. In a world where an enormous percentage of parents are single parent family situations, and where custodial rights are murky or hazy and not particularly well documented in court documents, that the potential for this type of situation is widespread. And I know that back in Cass County, and I'm sure up here, we see potential parental kidnappings or parental kidnappings at a disturbingly high rate between custodial parents who are in bitter disputes with one another.
What did you think when you were approached and you were told that, steps were going to be taken to close this loophole that you sort of became very aware of?
Well, Senator Justus called me and I was, anyway, I was kind of thrown back, and I think she also mentioned that it was Amber Alert Awareness Day the day before, and I don't even think it was in the media. It should have been, but it just gave me chills like it is right now. I couldn't be happier. I think it's going to help a lot of people. A lot of people, like Senator Koster just said, that's going to, more people than what you can imagine.
Do you think that this would have deterred your ex-husband?
I don't think anything